Guys, coming for Empire Season 2, Episode 17, Rise by Sin, and holy shit, what an episode this was. I mean, this season has been very mixed for me. You guys know the first half of the season I don't think was really that great. The second half has really picked things up more, and this episode was incredible. I love this episode. Maybe the best episode of the season. I mean, this episode was pretty flawless, honestly. There really was no issues with this episode. I really love what happened. I thought there was some really great emotional stuff here. I thought there was some really great music in this episode. Just really everything that makes Empire great was in this episode. I really enjoyed it. Maybe even better than last week's, honestly. Last week's episode, they had some things I didn't love, and this week's had some fantastic stuff. I love what they did in this episode. Really great stuff overall. Really enjoyed this episode. Definitely, in my opinion, maybe the best episode of the season. I think it's I think kind of a tie between this and Episode 4, Poor York. That still was my favorite episode of the season, but I think maybe this episode might have just changed that. Let's get into this episode. There's a lot to talk about. Starting off with one of the best things I think Empire does well, and that is Lucious's passion. Not Lucian, this isn't the originals. Lucious's passion for music. Because we see him rehearsing with a band for the ASA performance, and he is very hypocritical, and he's exhausting the band. He's nitpicking, he keeps pushing them, and he's basically just, even if something is just really good, Lucious wants it to be perfection. He wants it to be the best it's ever been, and of course it's for Chasing the Sky. The song clearly does mean a lot to him. He really wants it to be the Lion family anthem, and he wants to make sure that they keep it that way, and that it really is the song that best defines the Lions, and he wants it to be perfect, because in his mind, even though he knows his family is anything but perfect, he wants the song to be perfect, and Cookie shows up, says it sounds great, asks about his mother, and he says, still crazy. She says he needs to get some rest and give the band a break. Cookie says he's avoiding his mother and he tells her to stay in her lane. Cookie says that he's avoiding instead of dealing, which, yeah, he really is. He's avoiding the fact that his mother does have problems, and he's not really dealing with it. And she says she knows that he slept in his office, and he says Leah is dangerous, and he just doesn't trust her. Obviously, the whole cake situation, obviously, this is a dangerous woman, and this is not someone that he can really trust in any way, shape, or form. So he goes back to work with the band. Cookie leaves. Leah gets breakfast served while she used to watch his TV. And this is the one thing I was worried about. I was worried that Leah really doesn't have much focus in this episode. But no, we do focus on her quite a lot in this episode, which I did like seeing. Because Leah, by far, is one of the best things about this season. She sees the news about the ASAs. Leah refuses all the food, asks for coffee. She tells Juanita she thought she fired him. And she sees a boom, 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 boom video on TV. And just the expression on Leah's face. You can tell how disgusted she really is by this. The fact that he's making it think like, she killed herself when of course she didn't. She says he's always been a liar, a bald-faced liar, and, she knows that he's lying. She knows that this definitely isn't true. She knows that obviously a lot of what he's saying didn't actually happen. And it's really interesting because it really makes you think, did what Lucious say really actually happen? Now, it does kind of make a lot of flashbacks of season pointless, but they were already kind of pointless. Yes, we got that great stuff in some of the flashbacks, but I never really felt like they were necessary till the episode where Lucious finally confessed to Cookie what was really going on, which now we know was kind of lying. So very interesting stuff. Carol then shows Cookie a dress for the ASAs, and she says she looks like a hooker. Cookie says she just wants her boys to be on stage. Cookie's surprised when Carol says that she saw Tariq, and Cookie calls him Tariq the Freak, and Carol says he's not a Philly cop anymore, says he texted her to have dinner at Levictus, and Cookie sighs. She really knows that Tariq is just not to be trusted. Obviously he's back in her life. There has to be a reason why. You can tell right away that Cookie really does not trust Tariq, and as you know, neither do I. I really don't trust Tariq either. I think this guy isn't, I'm not going to say he's shady, but he is still a cop. There is no denying that. This guy is still a cop. I think as much as Carol wants him to not be a cop, he is a cop, and I think she needs to accept that. He's a cop, he's dangerous, and he's definitely coming after her. So Derek listens to Jamal working with Frida. Jamal asks Derek what he thinks, and he says they have magic. And let me just say, Jamal and Derek work a lot better in this episode because it didn't focus on Derek coming out. It focused more on Jamal and Derek as a whole, and also Jamal's character as a whole. And Frida heads out to her shift to the barbershop and hugs them both. She goes, and Derek tells Jamal he has to let his mom go. Jamal says no. Jamal says he loves working with her, and Derek says he's bigger than his mom and pops, and he says he needs to be more than a musical mama's boy and let him produce his next album. And Derek asks if he's big enough for him. They step closer, and you can tell that these two really, it's a very complicated situation because Jamal really wants to move forward with Derek, while it seems like Derek really just doesn't want to admit that he's gay. He really just wants this to be a platonic situation, which is interesting because it seemed like last week he did want to move forward, but in this episode seems more like he's kind of afraid to move forward and actually pursue a relationship. He kind of just wants a fling rather than he does an actual relationship, which is interesting, and I really think they did a very good job with that. So we then see after this, Andre visits with Leah, asks how she is and if she's taking her medications, and she says so many pills make her choke. And obviously, Lucious told Andre that he can't trust Leah, but Andre's not going to listen to Lucious. Obviously, he thinks that Leah's the best thing for him, and we do see some really good scenes between Andre and Leah in this episode. Leah says there's so many people working in the house, it makes her feel like Gone with the Wind. Leah brings up the Asas and says no one invited her and says she's never seen her son on the stage. Andre says we'll try and see if she can come back, but she'll need a dress. And I will say, I think they did a good job of really not humanizing, but also getting us to sympathize with Leah. You understand her situation. She really is being shut out, and she really just wants to be there for her son, whether she's crazy or not. I mean, that really is something that you can totally get by. And Leah says that Lucious wishes that she was dead, and that's why he showed her in that video, and he really wishes that, she would have died, when clearly he knew that she didn't, but he told everyone that she did, because that's what he wishes would have happened, which of course, she didn't actually die. So basically, Leah says he won't tell anyone he lied, and says she just wants to see her grandbabies on stage. And Leah says that no one will look at her twice, look twice with her, with so many pretty girls there. And basically, no one's really going to recognize Leah, no one's really going to care about her, because of the fact that there are going to be so many girls there that they're just not going to care that Leah's there, which I do think she's not wrong about. So, Anika comes to see Rhonda, who's so busy with ASA fittings, and you can tell that Rhonda really is suspicious of Anika. I mean, after all that information she has, the evidence really is, basically, pretty much the evidence is pretty clear that Anika was the one that pushed Rhonda down the stairs. I don't really think there's any other evidence that proves otherwise. I think pretty much she did push her down the stairs, and there really is no other story. She did push her down the stairs, and Rhonda asked what's up. Anika says she hasn't responded to her text, but Rhonda says it's just been crazy busy. Anika asks if it's her fault since her pregnancy is showing, and Rhonda asks her about the cute shoes she was wearing, and Rhonda says that they look great tonight shoes, and asks if she was wearing them on a specific night. And Anika asks if they saw each other that night. Anika looks confused, but Rhonda is flat out asking if she was at her place the night that she fell, which is crazy that she's asking this, but I do like the way that Rhonda does, because she's very low-key about it. She's not just saying to Anika, I think you pushed me down the stairs. The way she's doing this is to see if those shoes match the same shoes that push her down the stairs, because obviously we know that Rhonda had that freak out last week where she felt like she was being pushed down the stairs, and you can tell that she really is starting to think that Anika is the one at fault for this, which I do think would make sense. I mean, why would Anika just all of a sudden become best friends with her? It just doesn't exactly make sense, and I think Rhonda as well thinks that this really isn't making that much sense. So we then see after this, so I thought this was a really good scene. Laura and Hakeem then talk about wedding plans. She wants to let US Weekly to the wedding to help her career, and Hakeem says her career is not going to take off the way they thought it would. He says they worked hard and did some dope songs, but it hasn't popped yet, and you really do understand what's going on here, that Laura's career, she's just not as popular or as big as Hakeem thought she was going to be. He really thought she was going to be this big star and be very talented, and everyone really care about her, but it just hasn't really gone that way. People really care about Tiana more than they do Laura, and basically, Hakeem says that they can still do the US Weekly thing. Laura says her dream is marrying him, and that's enough for her right now. She doesn't really care if she's a star. We know that Laura cares about the music, and that's what matters to her, is the music. She hasn't really cared about being a star. She cares about being with Hakeem, and that's what matters to her. And I'm pretty sure this wedding is going to happen. I don't see this wedding not happening. I mean, I'm sure there are going to be things that prevent this wedding in the season finale, but I'm pretty sure they are going to have this wedding happen. I think it would make sense for Hakeem. I think it'd be good for Hakeem, and definitely, with the end of this episode, I'm definitely interested in seeing how that's going to play out. So Lucious tells Cookie that Tariq did quit the force in 2010, and Cookie says that she bets he's a Fed now. Lucious wonders why the Feds want him, and he says Tariq and Carol is very strange, and Cookie says that everyone knows Carol is a crackhead with 3 illegitimate children, and Lucious asks why she's taking Carol to ASAs, and he says he's taking a supermodel, and she says that no one wants his fat ass, and Cookie shows up to the table, greets Tariq, and she's really trying to get through to him. She's trying to basically see if she can really trust him, what his true motive is, if he really is there for Carol, or if he really is just trying to investigate her, because to me it seemed like the latter, that he really is just trying to investigate her. But she says she's not as gullible as her sister. She says Carol doesn't know she's there and says her sister is always late. Tariq asks if Carol hooks up with Lucious before she did, and Cookie says she knows he's a Fed, and he better not be putting the squeeze on Carol. Tariq asks if she's got something to hide, then says it's just casual date, and Cookie says that he was always a good one and never forgot the G code, and Tariq says it means more to him than his badge. And then he says that Lucious violates the G code when he killed her cousin Bunky, and she also says that her sister has herpes and tells him she hopes it's not too late. Ace of News is all over the TV, and it's a really interesting scene because the way that was done, you do see that Tariq and Cookie clearly do have a connection, and I like seeing that, but I really don't think that Tariq is sincere. I do think that Tariq does in fact want to go after Carol. I think he wants to get the information out of her. I think that's pretty conclusive at this point. That's exactly what he wants to do. And all the evidence really does point to that. I mean, just the way that he's back in town, of course, now knowing what Carol's doing, it just all seems to make sense. And we see Ace News is all over the TV. Tons of baskets arrive at Empire. Carol shows up. Cookie sits down with her, asks about Tariq, and Carol says back off. Cookie says Tariq wants her. Cookie asks what she told him. Carol says he's not investigating them. Cookie calls her stupid, and Carol says he's a good man who likes her. She won't let her steal him. Cookie asks if she drank last night and threatens to throw her out because she knows that obviously the reason Tariq is investigating Carol is because, you know, she's a druggie, and the fact that she's drinking is really going to ruin this, and Carol says she stole Lucious from her. Cookie says he never would have ended up with her, and Cookie says she blames her whenever she falls off the wagon, says she thinks she deserves her life. Carol says that Candace was right, and Cookie only has what Lucious let her have, and basically they aren't, I think, I don't think this is really Carol saying that Cookie stole Lucious from her. I think this is more of you can do better than Lucious. Like, Lucious doesn't really care about you. Lucious did care about me, but he doesn't care about you, and I do think Carol's sincere with this, but it's something that Cookie I don't think really wants to hear, and basically, Cookie says if she thinks that she doesn't care about him, bounce out of her house and office, and she tells her straight out she's not coming to Aces. She kicks her out. She blows up at her. Carol goes when she starts throwing things at her, and we then get an even bigger scene in this next episode, which really sets the tone for the end of this episode, which I think is one of the most genius things they did this season. Jamal's in the studio with Derek. He tells Jamal he loves that song, says his voice resonates. Jamal says the tempo's too slow. Derek says he'll work on it. Then asks if he'll be upset when he sees him on the red carpet with Chanel. And Derek says it's just one night. Lucious comes in. Derek shoves him back, says, don't ever come at me like that. And Lucious says that's not cool. And obviously, Derek is trying to hide the fact that he's gay from everyone. He only wants Jamal to know he's not ready to be out yet. And it really seems like he thinks that there's something wrong with it. Like, he doesn't feel like he himself should be coming out, which is interesting. And Lucious tells Jamal that Derek must still be on the down low. Lucious says a real dog can tell a fake bitch, and Jamal asks how he knew. Lucious says he knows how D Major likes to make rich boys his little bitch, and Lucious tells Jamal he bets he's on top, and Jamal says he's disgusting, and these two get into probably the biggest fight they've had since season 1, and this was even bigger than what they had, because we know that a big thing with Lucious and Jamal is that they've actually been on the same page for most of the season. Lucious has accepted the fact that Jamal is gay. He's accepted the fact that Jamal is not like him. He's accepted the fact that Jamal doesn't want absolute power like he does, because obviously Lucious does want this power, and Jamal just doesn't want it as much. And I think he's also accepted the fact that him and Jamal are not always going to see eye to eye. I think he totally does understand that. And also, I think Jamal, said straight out he did not want to make this a competition between him and his father. But all of that changes in this next scene, and it really is a fantastic scene for both Lucious and Jamal to really just wail out all of the problems that they have with each other and really just go through it. And it didn't feel like it was just a random scene to create drama. It really, to me, felt like this was the chance for these two to really just get out everything they feel about each other, the hatred that they have, the things that they can't stand by each other, and Lucious says he doesn't need to shit when he eats and where he eats, and says his lifestyle is intolerant, and he throws his unnatural way of life into his face. He calls Jamal a little girl. Jamal says Lucious can't even look at his mother in the eye and calls his dad a sissy bitch. Lucious then grabs him by the neck, and here's the thing. Jamal is not wrong. Lucious can't even call his mother by his real name. Like, he can't even accept the fact that his real name is Dwight, and he abandoned that name years ago to get away from his mother and pretend that that life never happened, which is clearly something that Lucious needs to do. Of course, he's aware of it, but he hasn't really accepted that that reality happened, and that whole reality of his mother dying, that just didn't happen. That's what Lucious wanted to happen, but it didn't actually happen. And I think it's a really effective scene in terms of that. Lucious then grabs him by the neck, calls him a disappointment, says the day Jamal dies of AIDS, he'll celebrate, and Jamal smiles snarkily, walks out, but it's Lucious with tears in his eyes, not Jamal, and you can tell that Lucious right away really regrets saying that. He pretty much, I think, just said this because he really just wanted to get through to Jamal. He was really hurt by what Jamal said. I don't really think Lucious meant that, and it's really sad to see because now these two are completely divided, and it's very sad to see. Jamal tells Cookie about Lucious, but she's all hung up and working with Frida, and D Major asked him to produce him. Jamal says his dad said things you can't come back from, and yeah, in many ways he didn't. I mean, they're really, a lot of the things that Lucious said, it's very hard to come back from that. And Cookie tells Jamal that the feds are still coming for them and they need to lay low. He says he doesn't care about the feds coming for Lucious. He doesn't really care what they do to him because he just wants Lucious out of his life. He really just caused him all this drama, and Cookie asks if she knows how she got out early, and he says that he thought that she snitched, and she finally lets out the truth. She says she snitched on Frank Gathers. Jamal says that that's Frida's dad. She says it was the only time she did, and Jamal says that Frank was in lockup with Lucious and asks if his dad killed Frank. Cookie says that Frank would have killed all of them and says he's dangerous, and Fred is an apple that didn't fall far from the tree. She says he needs to let Frida go, and finally Jamal knows why he can't work with Frida, because obviously Cookie has told him not to work with Frida since she found out he was working with Frida, but finally she admits to him why he can't work with her, and it's a great scene. I love that we finally got that. Now, you knew eventually it was going to happen, but finally we get to see that here. I am very happy that we found that out. It's been a big part of the season, and it's really been leading up, ever since the first episode, that really been leading up the entire season, is that reveal that Lucious did in fact kill Frank. I mean, at the time it didn't seem like a huge deal, if you remember. I just thought, oh, Frank was a character that was kind of, they could have done more with, but it really has led up to everything that has happened this season. Obviously, we know the season started, with the whole fact that, we remember that, of course, Lucious, we know this season started with Lucious killing Frank, and then just went from there. Lucious was in jail, he got out of jail, of course, and I really like the way this episode touched upon that, made us remember things that happened there. Really great scene, and really showed how while things were connected this season, there were plot lines and threads that did connect eventually, and I'm very happy about that. So Andre comes to see Leah go to the show and says they have to leave now before his dad gets home because he knows, of course, Lucious does not want Leah there. But then Thirsty is there, tells Andre to hand over his phone. His thugs block the door. Lucious comes to see Cookie, all dressed for the Aces, and asks her to walk the red carpet with him. Again, I have no idea what's going on with Thirsty. This kind of just intrigued me. At this point, I'm kind of just ignoring it because, again, it's like what they did with Harper Scott. I mean, there's nothing with her in this episode. Thirsty's here. I don't really know what his deal is. I don't really see what's going on here. We know he's working with Leah and everything, but I just don't really know. He says he heard she needed dates, and she says Carol's back to drinking. He says he has something for her, holds out a velvet box. She asks if it's a trick, and screams when she sees a huge diamond bracelet. Lucious says it's their night, and all they dreamed about, and he says he knew they'd get there, but didn't know it would take that long. Lucious thinks about them back in their broke-ass house, and it's a really powerful scene. Cookie talks about them duct taping their car door and says that they were so raggedy back then, and you really do see the struggle that they've gone through. And even though Lucious and Cookie aren't the best people ever, you understand what they had to come from. I mean, they came from nothing. They were dirt poor. We know they had to get all this stuff just from working on this together, and they were able to do this together. It's really the night that everything Cookie ever imagined is finally, ever imagined of him wanted is actually finally happening. And Cookie says he always saying stupid stuff back then, and nothing has changed, and Lucious says he missed her booty, and she walks away laughing so he can see it. Andre and Leah are locked in a safe room by Thirsty and his crew, and they told that they can watch the Asas on TV. The Asa red carpet is popping. Hakeem is with Laura. Frida's there too. Jamal is solo, and Lucious is with Cookie, who says they'll see a real family tonight. She says they are the Lions. The press asks her foes, and I love the scene where she says, "We are not the Partridge Family. We are not the Brady Bunch. We are the Lions." And as corrupted and crazy as we are a family unit, and we know that they're, of course, trying to pursue that. They're trying to be that family. But of course, after that whole big fracture between Jamal and Lucious that I said, really fractured their relationship, you don't really know if they're going to come back for them. The press asks for photos of Hakeem alone. They ask Laura to step back. She does and isn't happy because Hakeem's getting all the attention and Laura clearly isn't getting the attention. I do think it's a very realistic depiction, though. The fact that Laura just isn't as famous as Hakeem. No one knows of Laura because of the fact that Hakeem is so famous and Hakeem has all these fans and Laura just doesn't. She hasn't generated nearly the critical reception that she's wanted to. And while she says she's okay with Hakeem, I do think that she genuinely is upset that, obviously, what's going on with, her not getting all that attention. I do think she kind of wants the attention, even though she's telling Hakeem she's okay with it. So Cookie says Lucious drives him crazy, but he's the king and a genius, and why are the first family in music? He stands silent, letting her work her magic. A reporter asks if Jamal brought a date, and he sees Derek with a supermodel. Jamal says he's shelving his album and says they'll never see him on stage with his family after tonight, so enjoy it. And he's planning on going solo. He doesn't want to work with his family anymore. And Frida catches up with Jamal. He says she looks like a star. He says they need to talk about her leaving Empire, and he wants her to set up a new label, just the two of them, pretty much. He thinks the best thing to do for her to just leave Empire. And he says, trust me, get away from Empire. She's confused and hurt. And you don't just see this as this being what Cookie wants him to do. He generally wants her to get away because he doesn't want her to be in all this corrupted stuff that's going on. And especially knowing what Lucious is doing. Lucious killing Frank has only made him hate Lucious more. And Lucious talks about his life story, inspiring others after he lost his mother to mental illness. Leah says he looks fat. Leah says he promised he wouldn't lock her up again and calls him a liar and promise breaker. And Lucious says he's dedicating tonight to his mother. Carol shows up drunk, screaming for Cookie, talking trash. But I like the way that Cookie handled this. She calls Cookie Laretha. Cookie tells her to get her drunk ass out before she rips out her weave. They tell their security people to get her out. Carol staggers over to Frida, asks her to escort her, and Frida steps back from her, and Carol calls her a hood rat. Says Lucious wouldn't be there if he didn't feel guilty for what he did to her father. So yes, Carol just outright told Frida exactly what she has wanted to know. Who killed her father? She now knows that Lucious is the killer of her father, and this really changes everything, because I love the way this is done. Frida thinks back to the last time she talked to her dad, and Lucious walking him by in jail, and the evidence really is just there. There's no evidence that says that Lucious couldn't have done this. She knows straight out that just from that scene, that conversation, it just seems right that Lucious was the one that killed her father. So Cookie asks about Andre, and Lucious makes excuses. Frida thinks about all the interactions, Jamal going about his dad, and Frank too, and Frida goes running at him, grabs a gun from the security, heads for Lucious. She takes the shot. Jamal says stop. She shoots Jamal. And I knew that this gunshot was happening. Of course, from the promo, they said something huge was going to happen here. I did not expect it to be as big as it was, but I honestly kind of did expect it to be Jamal. Why? Because like I've said before, Jamal hasn't had a lot to do this season. I think in the beginning of the season he did, but he just isn't as relevant anymore. And yes, this episode he was more relevant, but of course, I think it would be best for the show if maybe they get away from Jamal and actually kill him off. It might be the best thing to do, because not that Jamal is bad, but I do think that the show can go on without Jamal. I think the show is honestly better when he doesn't have a plot, because when they're not really doing anything with Jamal and he's just focusing on his music, he's really good, but when they focus on him a lot of his plots just aren't really working. And they tackle her. Lucious is fine, but Hakeem screams. Jamal was shot. Cookie screams them to call an ambulance, and it really is just a call to reality for them. Their whole, their whole spectacle, their whole fantasy, it's over. Now they have to face reality. They need to face the fact that Jamal was shot. Frida's hauled off. Cookie screams. She begs him to stay with her. Andre flips out when he sees his brother shot on TV. He bangs on the door, tells Thirsty to let him out. He pounds on the door, and again, we don't know why Thirsty's holding him hostage. Really interesting to see what's going to happen with that. Leah looks horrified. Thirsty is passed out cold. Thirsty wakes and sees the news. The news talks about her being Lucious's prodigy, and Thirsty sees texts from Rhonda on Andre's phone with updates that Jamal lost a ton of blood. Lucious begs him to save his boy. Jamal is in bad shape, and Cookie rages. This is all Lucious's fault, and screams at people in the hospital that they're filming her, and in many ways, yes, this is Lucious's fault. I mean, none of this would have happened if Lucious would have just not killed Frank, which, of course, Cookie told him not to do in the beginning of the season. She didn't want him to kill Frank. Of course, she couldn't tell him not to do that, but she didn't want him to kill Frank, and because of him killing Frank, that's caused all this, and that's exactly why this has happened. But what I love about that scene with Jamal and Lucious is that they had that huge fallout. I mean, even though Jamal and Lucious had that huge fallout and said so many things to each other, you see that Jamal still loves his father. He knows that Lucious does love him, and he really does care about his father. Not nearly as much as Lucious loves Jamal. I don't really think that's true, but I do think that Jamal loves Lucious genuinely and will take a bullet from him. And in that scene where he's taking a bullet for him, it really shows that despite all that stuff they said, he still would take a bullet from him. It really does show how strong the relationship really is. I love that scene. I love the way that was done, and really deep context there. Now, the creators even said that was the plan all along. They just need to find a way to make that as emotional as possible. I really think they did the best job in showing these two fighting, showing these two really just going at it and stating everything they have wrong with each other, and then having Jamal get shot. I think it just makes sense. I think it really adds a lot of emotional levity to this, and I really enjoyed all of that. Not enjoy it, but it really added to the emotion here. Empire's never really been a show that never necessarily is, really emotional. Well, it's an emotional show, but a lot of times it's just soap opera-ish, and this was honestly really emotional. I like the way they did this. We see Cookie glares at Hakeem says all their fighting split the votes, and the Aces are on the TV. It's Song of the Year. The worst thing that could possibly happen happens next. It goes to neither Lucious or Jamal. Hakeem says all their fighting split the votes, and obviously, crisis struck out. They pretty much lost by forfeits, and Cookie glares at Lucious. Tariq tells his boss he's been building a case on Lucious for years. He says he's going to persuade Lucious' ex-fiance, and he has Anika's in an interrogation room. Andre offers to get coffee. Cookie says she'll take one, and we pretty much know that Tariq obviously is not to be trusted. He clearly is going after Lucious, and I feel like this is more Season 2 territory. This is more showing what's going to happen, not Season 2, Season 3 territory. This is more showing what's going to happen in Season 3, which I think is a very good setup. I definitely do like that, and especially if Tariq has more focus next season, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to work. But my only worry is that he is going to be very much what now I always forget her name. Roxanne. If you remember Roxanne, the person that was going after Lucious and knew all that information about him, I'm worried that that's going to be his character and that he's not really going to do anything different. But Tariq, of course, has a connection to Lucious. He knows a lot more about him, and of course, the family knows a lot more about him. So maybe that'll add something. We'll have to see what happens with that. I don't really know. He has Anika in interrogation room. Andre offers to get coffee. Cookie says she'll take one. Hakeem and Laura go too. Lucious tries to talk to Cookie, asks if he can sit by her. He says if you had heard the things he said to Jamal, and says maybe his mother should have drowned him. She says she can't help, and the fact that he's saying that maybe I should have drowned, maybe I should have died, it really shows that he does care, and she says he can't help what he was born into, says she knows what he wants to do right by his family, and Leah creeps away when no one is looking. The doctor comes to tell him the news. There's a fan vigil outside the hospital. Reporters outside talk about hip-hop violence. Leah comes out to the press, says she's part of the family. They ask her what her relationship is to Lucious, and that is how the episode ends. And overall, guys, amazing stuff. Absolutely really powerful episode, and really sets up a very interesting finale. Definitely the finale is going to be crazy next week. I mean, really, it's going to be knowing that Jamal, we don't know how he's going to be. Obviously, he's in a very critical condition. I don't think he's going to live. I really don't. I think they are going to kill off Jamal. I think it might be the best thing to do. I mean, honestly, what Lucious and Jamal said, you just can't come back from. And if Jamal does live, I don't really think that him and Lucious will ever be the same again. I think that Lucious kind of does want them to be the same, but even though Jamal took that bullet from him, for him, I don't think that shows that their relationship is going to improve anytime soon. I don't really see that happening. I don't really think that's going to be realistic, and I don't really think that's where the show is headed. So, no, I don't really think that they're going to repair things that quickly. I don't really think that's going to happen. It just doesn't seem like that's, something that's just going to happen in this, in something like Empire. It just doesn't seem like that. As far as the whole situation with Frida goes, how is this all going to work out? We'll have to see what happens with that. Obviously, Lucious now has to face the fact that Frida knows the fact that he killed Frank, and now that Tariq is going after him. Like I said, I really do think this is more of a Season 3 plot of what's going to happen in Season 3. We're setting that up. I think that's very interesting. What is going on with Thirsty? Obviously, he's holding Andre hostage. We don't know why. Clearly, he has another agenda. We don't know what's been. We've known that Thirsty's been, pretty much, Thirsty has been shady all season, and I think we're finally starting to see that. What is Leah really trying to do? I don't really know if she's trying to just play a role in Lucious' life, if she's trying to get him to really if she's going to tell the truth. I don't really know, but if she tells the truth, this could really ruin Lucious' reputation. It could ruin Boom Boom Boom. We know the love he has for that song. We know all he's done, but it is, I think, really good setup because it will get him to finally accept the fact that his mother never died, and that was just something that he wanted to happen. He needs to face reality. He needs to accept reality. He needs to realize that is what happened, and there's really no change to that, and there really is no way that he can't let that happen. That did happen. It happened. It happened. He needs to move past it, and I don't really know if he's going to be able to. I'll see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Hakeem and Laura, are these two actually going to get married? I'm hoping they do. I mean, I understand why Laura's really upset about what's going on, but I do like that she genuinely loves Hakeem and really does want to get married. That's going to be very interesting. And then as far as Rhonda, Anika is definitely the one that pushed Rhonda down the stairs. We don't really know what's going to happen with that. I'm not sure if Anika's going to confess, but obviously, Tariq Tariq has her in that interrogation room for a reason. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, you guys saw this episode. Love this episode. Amazing stuff overall. I cannot wait for next week's episode. It is going to be incredible. Next week's finale, I cannot wait for. Let me know if you guys saw this episode with your thoughts on it. I think it was really emotional. I think it was really powerful as well. And we'll see you guys in my next show, which will be for the Vampire Diaries. Yes, I am still watching the show. The season finale is tomorrow, so I'm going to catch up on all the episodes that I watched, and then I'll review the last 4 episodes as a whole, including the finale, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.